Now, if the pre-Columbian voice is fused with Catholic faith to make this sort of dynamic world that is Pan-Andean South America, there is one place in South America where the pre-Columbian voice can still be heard unfettered, and that is in this astonishing volcanic massif, the Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta, that soars to 20,000 feet right out of the Caribbean coastal plain of Colombia. It's inhabited by the descendants of the ancient Tairona civilization, the Kogi, the Arahuacos, the Cancuano, and the Wiwa, who fled the conquest into this massif and were to this day, in a blood-stained continent, they've never been fully conquered by the Spanish, and they remain ruled by a ritual priesthood. And shortly after I left Kaneko, I was able to embark on one of the most extraordinary expeditions of my career. The metaphor for these people is the loom. They say, upon this loom I weave my life. As they move up and down the mountain, exploiting various ecological niches, they refer to their movements as threads, such as over the course of a lifetime, each man and woman weaves a cloak over the body of the goddess, Serancua. The temples where the men celebrate have they're conical structures. They have 4 layers of the upper world. This is our world, and 4 mirror image layers of the underworld. They have a hole at the very top of them, and there are 4 sacred hearths with a 5th one in the middle. At both the spring and fall, the summer and winter solstices, the temples are aligned so that the sun rises in the east and sends a beam of light onto this hearth, and then by the end of the day it sends a beam of light on this hearth. And then at the winter, it's the other side, going like that, and then at the fall and spring equinoxes, when the sun rises to the meridian, the beam goes down, the priest sends up a shield to reflect it into the heavens, and then you see the men begin to move toward the western door of the temple. What they're doing is removing the heddle from the divine loom of the Creator, because over the course of a solar year, the divine sun weaves a cloak over the body of humanity. It's just an amazingly Baroque culture. Now, they are ruled by a ritual priesthood, and in the 1940s, a very famous Colombian anthropologist by the name of Reichel Domatov reported that the training for the priesthood was astonishing. He said the young acolytes were taken away from their families at the age of 2 or 3 and then sequestered in a shadowy world of darkness, 2 9-year periods deliberately chosen to mimic the 9 months of gestation in their natural mother's womb. Now they were metaphorically in the womb of the Great Mother, and for this entire time, the world only existed as an abstraction as they were taught the values of their society, which included the idea that their prayers and rituals literally maintained the cosmic balance. And at the end of this incredible initiation, the youths at the age of 18, having never seen the sky, were taken on a sacred journey to the heart of the world, and the priest who had trained them steps back and says, as they see this beautiful landscape, it's as beautiful as I've always told you. It's yours to protect. Now that was a story that was almost an ecological or anthropological fable. It was almost too good to be true. No anthropologist had ever accompanied one of these journeys. No one had ever documented one of these journeys. And then an amazing thing happened. This man walked into my office at the National Geographic with the Colombian ambassador. His name was Danilo Villafaña, and he was with 3 priests who were barefoot in the winter days in Washington, one from each of the 3 dominant tribes. And as I was talking to him in Spanish, I couldn't help but say, Danilo, I don't mean to be rude, but you look like an old friend of mine. And I showed him this photograph, and it turned out that the man on the left was his father, and his father had, Adalberto, had been murdered by the paramilitaries. And I said to Danilo, you may not remember this, but when you were a baby, I carried you on my back for months up and down the mountains with your father. And this man on the left was his cousin, and this man now is this revered elder, Eugenio, second from the left. And based on this incredible coincidence, Danilo said something incredible. He said, I'd like you to go with me on a journey to the heart of the world. And so we did, and with a film crew. And what we discovered is that at least today, the young acolytes don't spend 18 years in the darkness, but they do spend 18 years in the environs of the sacred circle, never leaving those confines. Much of the time, indeed, in the darkness, in the night, as they acquire this sacred knowledge. And then it is true that they're taken on a journey to the heart of the world, as we made this film about them. And every ripple in the landscape resonates with spiritual and mythological significance. Even the hats the men wear are a conscious attempt to mimic the snowfields found at the heart of Saranqua. And then we ran into the unexpected. One stage away from our ultimate goal, we found the priests, when we got there at dusk, in a circle doing this. And that meant when they pray, their thoughts are as threads, and so a gesture of weaving as they pray. And we knew something was up, and what was up is that we had just missed getting kidnapped by the FARC by about half an hour. A FARC patrol had been following us. They knew we were from the National Geographic, and they had just left this hamlet as we rounded the corner on our mules. Now, I can't promise you that we had a dramatic escape. You don't really have a dramatic escape on a mule. You kind of clip-clop your way to rescue. But they took us immediately. The darkness came, and here you can see the sentinels watching for the FARC as we were hidden away in one of the temples. And then we went up through the spectral light of a full moon on these tracks through these cliffs that only the Indians knew. And in the morning, we ran into a firefight between the 5th Battalion of the Colombian Army and the Marxist guerrilla bandits. And we had just walked into a hornet's nest. But mercifully, we simply handed our cameras to the Wiwa fellows that we had trained, and they finished this section of the film for us. And amazingly, you cannot tell where their footage begins and the Bollywood directors and cinematographers end. We then went back to the coast, where even today, though the sacred sites are covered by skyscrapers, the elder brothers, as they call themselves, continue to pray for our collective well-being. It's humbling to think that not 2 hours from Miami Beach, these individuals, in a very defiant way, and speaking in full paragraphs, are begging us to change the way that we treat the world and to reform our ways.